Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut channel live stream. How you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing well. So, a few things before we get started. Mrs. Car Care Nut and myself have been working really hard on the merchandise. Some of you have asked, and we're trying to get this out sometime this week. So I'll share a small note when that's out. We're trying to think some creative design. Some of them got shot down because apparently some things I've been saying are registered trademarks. Go figure. But can't do those, but we can definitely go do the other stuff that I say throughout the channel. Some of you guys have noted that you like some of the sayings. But the other thing is, I will not be hosting a live stream next week. On next Saturday, I won't be hosting a live stream. I have a few things going on with the family. So we will see you guys the following Saturday. Just wanted to let you know this at the beginning in case you don't watch this till the end. Having said that, guys, how about we answer some questions? Let's do that. So Brian Lassane, and sorry if I say your name incorrectly. I have a 2008 RAV4. Check engine light is on. Mechanics said evap canister. Emissions due in March 2020. Does it need to be replaced now, or can we wait till March? Also, we'll be visiting family in Chicago with our 21 RAV4, looking for a Toyota dealership to get the 5,000-mile service. Here in Houston, we have some trusted dealerships, and some we don't. Okay, so let's start with the 2008 RAV4. You need to get this done. Don't wait till the last second. Whenever you have a check engine light that is going to make you fail emissions and you have an emission test coming up, get it fixed as soon as possible and go take your... I don't know how things work in Texas, but for example, in Illinois, you don't actually have to wait till the last minute to take your emission test. You can take it as long as you are due for one. So as soon as you have an issue for emissions, get it fixed, go take the emission test, pass it and be done with it. Then if the check engine light comes back after that, you have time. In Illinois, it's every 2 years you got to take an emission test. I don't know how things are in Texas, but do not wait till the last minute because some of these evap tests could take a little bit of time till something called a monitor set. So it'll take a week or two till everything is ready and you go take your emissions. So don't wait till the last day. I wouldn't actually wait even to February, 3 months before you have to, maybe around Christmas time, January. Get it fixed, get it ready in case it takes longer, in case it needs more work, whatever the case may be. Don't wait till the last minute. Then you end up with no car to drive because the plate is expired or however things are in Texas. About your Chicago area visit, many dealerships, including the one I work at, for a 5K, it's just a rotate unless you're going to do an oil change, tire rotation. You might scrape by any dealership and you're fine. Just pick the nearest dealership next to you. If you want to come to the dealership where I work, sure, send me an email with Chicago service request in the title, and Mrs. Car Care Nut will get the email and she will show you where to go, what to do, and we'll go from there. Okay. So Matt-Fi, I successfully changed the ATF on my old 2006 Yaris and it's shifting like a dream. Thanks for thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it. I'm glad everything went smoothly for you. So Jose Cortez, I have a 2016 Toyota RAV4, 24,000 miles. When do you recommend changing the rear differential and front transfer case fluids? So every 30,000 miles or 3 years. 3 years is, unless you do some heavy towing, that's kind of a recommendation, but 30,000 miles. When you're close to 30,000, when you get to 30,000, do the fluids and life's good. So No Name says, would the Sienna Hybrid 2021 be able to go up a steep hill being full of passengers and pulling a small trailer? So it will be able to, that's for sure, but you will feel like the engine is a little bit labored, it's revving up. That's just the way they are. It's nothing I'm concerned about. I wouldn't be concerned you're going to blow it up, for example, but that's just the way they are. That's the one sacrifice with the 4-cylinder and going the hybrid route. You're going to get better gas mileage, but you're going to sacrifice. You're not going to go up the hill with full passenger for load at full speed. It's going to lag back a little bit, but can it go? Yes, absolutely it can. So One Hand Clapping says, how often should I change the brake fluid? Well, that depends. You got to test the fluid, but on average, every 30,000 miles, every 3 years-ish, that's when you should expect the fluid potentially to fail a moisture test. But it's got to be tested. There's a little tester you could test it, and If it passes, it passes. Don't worry about it. If it fails, then replace it and life is good. So Charles Jackson, what is a small 2x2 filter-looking device on the left side of the fan shroud on my 2020 Camry 4-cylinder? Does it need to be cleaning or replacing? So we've asked about that, and it's one of two things. It's a little area where the fan pulls air in case there's a backup. That theory didn't make sense. The other thing is it's just a baffle to manage the noise of the fan. It's not really something serviceable. I wouldn't worry about it. Don't worry about cleaning it or doing anything to it. So Claude Grimes, I have a 2011 Tundra in code 2118. It's showing truck won't accelerate, check for fuse. It's okay. Any other options? Do I need to buy a new module? So this one is going to need a little bit of diagnosis, but ECTS fuse, 10 amp fuse, just replace it. Don't just replace it and see what happens. If that doesn't fix it, look at the throttle body. Is it seized? When take the throttle body, like take the intake out, look inside the throttle body, turn the key on. Do not put your hand in there. Push the gas pedal all the way down. Does the throttle body try to move and then stop, or does it move and open? You know, there is some diagnosis involved if the fuse is good and you're getting power and ground to the throttle body. So Colorado Booth, thank you so much, sir, for joining the chat. It's really good to see you. Let us see. So Phil Mann, I have a 1998 Camry V6, only 102,000 miles. I'm considering replacing the timing belt for the second time, interference engine. Anything else besides the water pump I should also replace? Yes. I would replace at this age, I would replace the cam sensors and cam seals and crank seal, not sensor. There's two cam seals. They're right behind the gears, and there is a crank seal at the bottom behind the sprocket where the water pump goes around the crankshaft. They're notorious to get old, leak, and make a giant mess. So while you're there, do the water pump, check all the idler pulleys. These things, like the idler pulley in the middle, and the tensioner pulley and the tensioner itself, they last forever. But do check them. If you see anything, if you don't want to have second guesses, you don't want to go in there again, just replace them. And that's about it, really. Water, you already got the water pump, but do get the cam and crank seals. Those are very important. Soccer Dad, I was just looking for you yesterday. I would like you to contact me if you don't mind, Soccer Dad. Do send me an email. Say, this is Soccer Dad, and I want to tell you something. Lexus Man, 100. Sorry. Thank you so much for the congratulations on the subscriber. So 2011 CT, creaks on both right hand and left hand lock on steering wheel. Any ideas? So it could be a few things. The first thing I would look at is simple stuff. Now, this is a CT, and I haven't seen this in a CT. I've seen this in some Priuses. The motor itself gets loose, and it starts kind of rocking back and forth and making a creaking noise. You just tighten the bolts and life is good. But you want to distinguish, is the noise inside or is it outside? Outside could be a lot of things. Could be strut mounts, ball joints, very rare on the ball joints, but strut mounts are more common. Sway bar links, or it could be something as simple as the little rubber boot on the ground where the steering shaft turns into, just making that creaking sound. You can put a little bit of grease and life is good. So there's going to be a little bit of diagnosis, but the first thing you want to start with is it inside or outside? All right. So Jerwin, you're picking up like 3,000 subscribers per week. If you're making like a stock, I'd be rich investing in your company. That's funny. Oliver, did you decide on your next vehicle? Maybe. Actually, yes. So I'm not going to share it with you. I'm going to leave you in suspense a little bit. And when it actually arrives and I'm making my final decision, I'm actually going to get a car for the next week or two. I am very picky with my cars, and I want to drive a similar one for a week, see how I feel about it, see how my back agrees with the seat, because the seats are, newer car seats have been going gradually towards uncomfortable. I've been driving the S-Class. That is the mother of comfortable seats. It's like a 20-way adjustable seat. So I have to make sure the seat is good. Once I agree, my back agrees with the seat, it should be coming mid-August. stay tuned. It's coming, and it's a Toyota, that's for sure. Because the miles I'm putting on the S-Class are starting to hurt. And she's behaving, but I don't want to push the envelope. Let's put it this way. So, Jesus Silva, I have a 21 Corolla hybrid. Notice that when I come to a complete stop, my display shows that my battery is still providing power to the tires. I have pressed the brake more to make the battery stop. So sometimes it'll happen. It'll just, that little screen will lose communication and kind of go a little crazy. Don't worry about it. There's nothing going on. I've noticed that actually with some of these cars. Like if you really creep to a stop in a certain way, it'll just keep showing it for a little bit, then it'll stop. But it's nothing I'm worried about. Don't worry about it. That screen is just a kind of a reference. It's not actually what's going on. It's just getting a signal from the computer. Hey, do this, and that's that. So don't worry about that. So Alan Holmes, any concern with the gas engine not being used enough on the RAV4 Prime? So far, no. I haven't seen any cases. Honestly, in Chicago, there's very, 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 very few RAV4 Primes. We actually saw one the other day, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago. It was not an Illinois sold car. It was just, I don't remember what state it was, but it had 5,000 miles. Didn't really had a chance to go and talk to the owner, but I couldn't really, it came in really quick in the shop. I was like, oh, that's RAV4 Prime. What is it in here for? Disaster? No, it's just a 5K. So nothing really extreme. But whoever that is, I'm very proud of them because they actually insisted on an oil change. So that was really, really nice of them to do. But yeah, so far there's no issues. There's a few TSBs I discussed in the video, but nothing really abnormal about it, especially on the engine not being used much. I'll give it a year or two. That's how long the Prius Prime took before the first one showed up with an issue. So Lexus man, sorry, it's upside down with the suspension. So you're gonna want to lift the car up and turn the wheel and try to hold components, hold the strut, like hold the spring, see if you feel it the loudest, hold the rack, hold the ball joint on the control arm, hold the sway bar link. You're going to want to find a place where it's making the noise the loudest, and that's probably what I would chase after. But before you do, spray it with some silicone spray, see if it goes down, changes, spray it with some soapy and water. That also works for diagnosis suspension noise. If you spray it down, sound not necessarily goes away, but changes. You're chasing after the right component. So Toyota 2AR FE, I have a 14 Camry SE. I got in 2018. Right now it has 32,000 miles. Brakes and rotors are due. Should I pick Toyota OEM for 500 or can I use CPH1? So I'm guessing the 500 is front and back, because if it's just front or back alone, that's a bit much. But honestly, I used to have the exact same car, and you could go aftermarket if you want to save cost, but I would ask yourself, how much are you saving? The brakes on the Camry are great. If the original rotors are still in good shape and they, at the slow miles, if they don't have rust, don't replace them, resurface them. Some shops will charge you, I don't know, $10, $20, $30 to resurface the rotor. I would use those OEM rotors, resurface them, and now you're not buying, all new rotors all around, and just get the pads, OEM pads. If you want, you can get the value ones. They're almost the same as aftermarket, but really that's up to you. Just don't buy a very, very cheap aftermarket. Buy a good aftermarket. I can't really recommend exact brands because I only deal OEM. I don't put aftermarket pads, any brakes on my cars, but that's really the recommendation. Shop around is the biggest thing, because if the difference is $20 between that aftermarket and the original, I don't know. I would go original, but that's up to you. Lala G, how you doing, sir? It's really good to see you. I hope you're doing well as well. Thank you for asking. Real World Garage, how you doing, brother? Hope you're doing well. Coming to you from 1,500 miles from home base. We are on 3,000-mile road trip in the 21 Highlander. Transmission still acts weird at times. Yeah, that's what they do. Goes away or hot. Yeah, I was watching your video the other day. I hope you're enjoying your trip. And the transmission, that's the 8-speed. It's like the 8-speed transmission. I had that Highlander. I drove it that was the last 8-speed I drove for a while. It's like if you're driving normally, everything is fine. But as soon as you start like accelerating, overtaking on the highway, just things go crazy. It just downshifts way too much, and the RPM shoots up, and then it comes back. And it's just like it doesn't has a mind of its own. It hasn't decided where we want to shift next, and that's mainly because of emissions. I mean, you're doing 30 miles an hour is already in 8th gear. That's a little excessive. Maybe if it was in 6th gear and downshifts, it wouldn't be so bad. But you're already in 8th gear at very low speed, and that's way too much. They'll do that for fuel emissions, and what are you gonna do? That's how the 8-speed is. It's not a problem. It's gonna blow up, but it's just annoying. It's very annoying. I hear you. So, sorry, I can't read your name. LEMTZJMZ. So, what causes tire cupping in a 2014 Toyota Camry? My rear tires are wearing irregularly and making sound at speed. So, let's talk about tire cupping. First one is lack of tire rotation. Some people do rotate their tires and they still get the cupping. Well, then let's go to the next thing. What brand tire is it? Are we talking some off-brand tire, or is it Michelin, Goodyear? You know, the known brand, not some random brand that nobody's heard of. The third thing is, are your rear struts worn down? Are they leaking? Because when the strut leaks and it no longer can absorb the shock, the tire will tend to do this when you're driving, especially on highway, and that cups the tire really bad. So this is the order of business I would look at. Have you been rotating your tires every 5,000 miles? If no, well, that's the reason. Rotate your tires after you've replaced the ones that are cupped, and life is good. If you have off-brand tires, replace them with good brand tires or maybe the OEM ones, and life is good. If you don't have neither, you have good brand tires, you rotate them regularly, check the struts. And the last thing, which is rare, and it really depends on you, do you have excessive weight in the back? Like, I see a lot of people that traveling salesmen, people are moving even, and they keep stuff in the car. They always like, I have a friend who drives a 2010 Camry. He's a floor, window, and that, you know, he's a contractor. And he's a salesman for his own company. He always have samples and stuff in the back. I mean, the car is always sunk down in the back. They'll actually cup the tires because that's way too much weight on the back, that wearing down the tires unevenly, because the suspension will kind of tend to push back and wear the tires uneven. So that's another thing I would look at. So let's look at this one. Raj Sebastian, 2012 Camry Hybrid, oil control valve filter location. You know what? It's been maybe a year that I haven't tore into a 2A RFE. We've been too busy with the A25A, which I have another one sitting on my bay right now. I don't think they do have one, believe it or not. I don't think they do. I will double check, but I don't think they do. Do me a favor, when we're done with the live stream, leave me a comment so I can remember and look it up. But I don't think they do. This one, I don't think they do. And before someone gets worried with what I just said, the A25A, I have a small story to share with you. You're going to love this one. 2020 RAV4, 12,000 miles, beautiful car, basically essentially brand new, less than a year old. The owner drove it through a standing puddle of water. Please don't do that to your car. Please never do that to your car. Because yes, the water did not go inside the car and flood it. No, the engine took the water inside, locked up the engine, bent everything, destroyed the whole engine. Almost $13,000 later, with the insurance company and the lack of used engines, and plus the insurance company can't really put a used engine in a car that's less than a year old, almost $13,000 to replace basically everything in the engine, because it's all full of water, all rusty, and of course the insurance sat for a while to scratch their head and figure out what's going on. Everything was completely rusty. I do have a video with, I'm working on it to get it as a shorts for you guys. The intake manifold is literally a swimming pool. Please don't drive through standing puddles of water, and life will be great for everybody. So, Jose Cortez, I think we already answered that question. Brian, we're going to pass on that one. If you guys read that comment, that's interesting. So, F1346M. Getting ready to fix a dry start on a 2008 Highlander 3.5. I believe that the issue are the cam gears. Do I need to do both intake and manifold and exhaust sides? Yes. If you are gonna take that engine down, tear it all apart, do all this mess, do put 4 gears. There's no, I wouldn't even do this job if you're not putting 4 gears. And more importantly than the 4 gears, you're gonna want to clean everything of this end before you even start. Take the oil cap off, look inside. Is this thing full of varnish? Did somebody decide 10,000-mile oil changes were okay? That's an old engine. That should not get 10,000-mile oil changes. If it's varnished up, you're going to make sure you clean all your oil passages for the variable valve timing. You're going to make sure you replace or heavily clean the filters on the lines that go from the cylinder heads, from the valve covers all the way down. Because anything of this you skip, you could put those gears on, all that sludge goes inside, and we're back to square one. So make sure you clean it and do put 4 gears. Even if you only have a rattle on one side, you see 1 gear that's apart on one side, put 4 gears, because that's not a job you want to do twice for saving money. That's not exactly saving money. So David Feeder, Prius Prime, is it safe to put the car in neutral to go through a car wash? Absolutely. That's a short period of time. You should be good. When I refer to that in my video, I refer to unnecessarily. If you have to, car wash, put it through a car wash, it'll be fine. But I see people, and you might, when I work in the automotive business, you kind of see all kinds of people from all kinds of walks of life. The first person that actually had a severe problem with this was someone who got in their car, started it up. It's a hybrid. It was actually not a Prime. It was a Prius, and put it in neutral, let the car run. And they were just reading their newspaper, not even driving. It's in their driveway. That's what they did. And that's how they killed the battery. And then when the car shut off, they kept going and going and going until they bricked the car, towed it to the dealership. And we found this out from kind of interviewing the customer. Hey, how did this happen? This is a very low mile car. What's going on? So that's how we found that one. So Iftikhar Hassan, 2013 Toyota Camry, check engine light, P219A and P0102. What can be the solution? I would have to look up these codes, and you're going to make me look for them, because these are not codes that I am very familiar with. Leave me a comment after. I don't want to take time from other people. The 102 could be a mass airflow, but I want to look into the other one. So leave me a comment afterwards. I just need to look at the definition of the codes. As far as something common, there is no something common. Leave me a comment after the live stream, and we'll look into it. Old school, does the 2007 Camry have an IAC valve? My husband couldn't find it when he cleaned the throttle body. So there's no IAC valve in 2007 Camry. By the way, if you guys are interested, I have a video planned, and I'm delaying it, pushing it, for how kind of Toyota electronic throttle works, so you guys can understand why do we clean the throttle body, what's happening behind the scenes, and what got taken out, including the IAC. If you guys are interested in such video, leave me your reply in the chat. I always check the chat at the end, or just leave a comment if you're watching this later. But no, there is no IAC valve in the 2007 Camry. That's why you can find one. It's just a throttle body. It does everything. It controls the idle. So when your husband cleaned the throttle body, that's it. That's all you got to do to deal with to have a smooth idle, and life's good. So middle cover motors. I got a GR4 Yaris in February. Congratulations. I wish we could get those in the US. Now we're not happy. That's not a nice thing to say to people in the US. Why can't we get the Yaris? Why did we get the Mazda? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But Toyota, if you're listening, probably not. Please do bring the GR Yaris to the US. So Naveen, Toyota Corolla Hybrid or Prius Hybrid 2021, which one would be best buy? Honestly, they're exactly the same. Underneath the skin, they're exactly the same. They share the same powertrain, same everything. The Prius is more of a specialized car, specialized hybrid, the mother of hybrids, has that unique shape, gets a little bit better gas mileage because it has that unique shape. They do have a following because it's a Prius, it's the original hybrid. However, the Corolla hybrid is just a normal car that happens to be a hybrid. So if you like the Prius kind of lifestyle, if you call it, or the shape, or the specialty, or really that crazy gas mileage, then go with the Prius. If you just want a normal car that has a normal shifter and just otherwise a completely normal Corolla, just happens to have more gas mileage than a hybrid, then go with the Corolla. Because really the difference reliability-wise are going to be exactly the same because they have the same drivetrain. So DM Partners, what can you say on the 5th gen Highlander hybrid? You know what the best part is? Every time you guys say 5th gen, 3rd gen, this, I have to actually count them. Toyota doesn't use generations, they use just model years. So I am counting, and 5th gen should be the current generation. I'm coming up with a review very soon on the 2020 and up Toyota Highlander. The hybrids are very good. I personally like that they went with the 4-cylinder. Some people don't. It's kind of like the Sienna. You get better gas mileage, but then you don't have the V6. Guess what? The hybrids are supposed to be fuel efficient and environmentally green. So they're not really meant to be fast. So that's what Toyota realized. And you can really, the Highlander V6s didn't get impressive gas mileage to begin with. They got better gas mileage. They got good. It was not impressive, not what Toyota wanted. So they went with a 4-cylinder. It's the same thing with the Sienna hybrid. It's adequate power. It's not crazy like the V6, but it's not completely unusable. It's adequate. So Butch Girosia, 2021 4Runner, steering wheel shakes at 60 miles an hour, only have 1,200 miles. What's up with this? So there's a lot of concerns about this. And the first thing you want to do is road force balance the tires, then swap the tires with different brand. There is a specific sequence of things that need to happen in a dealership. Do take it back to the dealership. Do go with a drive with a technician, shop foreman, whoever is even service manager, service advisor, because sometimes they'll tell you, oh, we drove it, we couldn't find it. Well, it needs to happen at 60 miles an hour. Another thing is raise the tire pressure to 36 PSI. That's another thing that could work. Raise it to 36 PSI. And do tell the dealership, does it get worse or better? They need to know that because there is something going on in the background about this, but they can't share much because it's not public information. But do involve your dealership and give them every little detail about this so they could follow up and get to the bottom of it. So Jerwin Tabor, sorry if I said that wrong, 2021 RAV4 Prime. Anything bad with adding like DRL LEDs inside, sequential turn signals, and other extra power needing accessories? As long as you keep it professionally installed, it could be by you, could be DIY, but just don't zip tie things together. Do things right. Electrically, everything needs to be fused. Everything needs to be routed right, where it's not interfering with other stuff. You should be okay as long as it's not excessive. Or now we're putting giant spotlights on top of it. I've seen actually a RAV4 with like 6 giant spotlights that the spotlights look bigger than the car. As long as we're going with tasty touches, like you are, like tasteful touches to upgrade the car, like you are doing from your description, that should be fine. You should be okay. Just don't go overboard. So, Dr. E, you are at the Toyota dealership right now. First oil change. I hope it's at 1,000 miles or 5,000 miles. I'll take both of these. All right. I hope the dealership is treating you well. They better be. So, Quentin Bitters bought a Yaris hybrid. What do you think about the model? Greetings from the Netherlands. So, Quentin, I'll be honest with you. We do not have the Yaris hybrid per se. But the closest thing to it, from what I've looked into it and found out, is the Prius C. They're good cars. They're really, I don't think they made the jump to the next generation hybrid drivetrain. They're still the previous generation. But nonetheless, they're really good cars. And from my research, that's a really good powertrain that you have in there. So, is there actually a difference with the 2019, 2020, 3.5 Tacoma? Wanted to get the TRD, but it only lists 2016, 2019 model. Don't really want to go aftermarket. So there is no difference in the engine. The engine is the same. There might be a trim change, and that's really all it is. But as far as the engine, they're all the same. There is really nothing I've changed with the Tacoma since 2016. Few updates, production updates, but nothing major that was updated. Javier Contreras, yes, I got that right. Hopefully. We need another dealership adventures video. Yes, it's coming up, and I gotta sit down and film it. I do have 3 good stories for you guys. Now, the last one will be kind of a different type of story than the usual, but yes, that's coming up. I know it's been a while. It's time. So, Landon Ashby, 2013 Toyota Cnx all-wheel drive with navigation system. The radio sound drops in volume sporadically. Is this a ground issue or something else? It seems to be a known issue in the Sienna community, but no fixes. So the first thing with sound is the amplifier. That's especially you're talking XLE all-wheel drive with navigation system. Does it happen to have JBL by any chance? This is something that almost all Toyota amplifiers at some point used to do, and that Sienna is still part of those bunch. The first thing you want to do is find a pattern to it, because this is very difficult to diagnose, because most dealerships will actually have a few spare amplifiers laying around. That was back in the day. Now they're probably all gotten thrown out, put in a customer car, employee car or something. But we used to have test amplifiers. We just unplug it, plug it, because it's really hard to diagnose and really hard. I mean, you get a car at a dealership and it's doing that, but then it did it once, and then I drove it for 2 hours and it didn't do it once. Well, now what? But usually it's the amplifier that does that, because if this is a car with a separate type amplifier, the weirdest design that is, it has to do with the design. The sound goes, when you change the sound on the radio, it actually, that just sends a signal to the amplifier, and the amplifier is actually what changes the volume. So if there's any issue in the communication between the two, and usually it's inside the amplifier, everything goes crazy. It just drops, goes back, and it just does all these weird stuff. And it's usually the amplifier. So I am not going to pretend to read that. Los Huita Hoodie. Sorry if I got that wrong, which I guarantee you I did. So I have a 2016 Toyota Camry. Every time I go up or down driveways or even go on uneven roads, this clanking noise happens from what I sound like to be the sunroof. Absolutely. Very common sunroof problem. It's nothing that's going to fall off, fall apart. Very annoying. It's a known problem. There's actually a TSB for it to fix it. Unfortunately, a headliner has to come down. So if this is now warranty, cost might be a little up there, but nothing crazy. It's, I think, 6-7 hours of labor for that headliner to come down, and some shims installed in the body. But if it doesn't bother you, you're just concerned about the sunroof falling on your head, that's not the case. It is literally 2 pieces of metal just hitting each other, and all the fix is tear everything down, put a small piece of foam in between them where now they don't hit each other. They don't make that noise when you twist them like that when you're going into driveway. Super annoying sound, super loud sometimes, where you feel like something is going to break in half, but it's not. Don't worry. Annoying enough for you, you can get it fixed, and there's a TSB that details exactly how the procedure works for that. So, Nazaretos, what do you think about the 2021 Lexus NX 300? I'm assuming you say turbo. Is it powerful enough? So I have to say this is my personal opinion. I'm not very fond of the NX. Not because it's not a good car, but because I think they could have done a slightly better job with it. That's just my personal opinion for the price. I mean, you look at the RAV4 and it's like, could have done better. When you compare the Highlander to the RX, there's a significant difference, even though they're exactly the same car. You get an RX, things are quiet and refined and much different materials, different carpet, different everything, even though it's the exact same car. But the NX, I was not very impressed. And I recently drove one that we had as a used car. I was not very impressed by the material, by how everything is put together. Now, is it that just my personal opinion? Is it a good car? It is. The turbo ones, and I think the NX 300 should not have a turbo. I think the 200T, unless that changes every day. But the turbo ones, there is no issue so far that I know of, that I've heard of, that I've seen. Everything seems to be okay. But we've had this conversation multiple times. Turbos, it's only a matter of time before something happens. Could be 100, 150,000 miles, but that's one more thing that will go south with age. So just, you really need to take care of it with maintenance from the beginning to make it last as much as possible. So Peter in New York, do I need to change my transmission fluid 2017 RAV4? My dealer said it's not needed, and the people who say to change it just want to take your money. Okay, well, I don't want to take your money. You are Peter in New York. I am AMD from Chicago. So you do need to replace your transmission fluid, preferably every 60,000 miles, 6 years, because here's what I tell you about the dealership. They make very little money when you take your car to a dealership to get a transmission service. You probably, best case scenario, it pays an hour of labor. Best case scenario. Usually it's between 0.5, 0.8 hours of labor. But you know what pays a lot more than that? A new transmission. That's all I'm saying, people. I'm not going to continue elaborating on this. It's totally up to you. It's your car, your money. This is my opinion. Transmission costs a lot more than your fluid replacement. And if you're worried about cost, do it yourself. I have now 2 videos talking about this. Do it yourself. Life is good. The other thing is, you decide. The dealership gives you their opinion. I give you my opinion. You decide. How long are you keeping this car? If you're keeping this car 3 more years and she's out and you're getting another thing, don't worry about it. But if you're going to keep this car for 10, 15 years, do change the transmission fluid and you're going to have no issues. No, the page jumped again. Let's try to go back where we were at. Sorry about that. She loves to do this to me. Here we go. Okay, so Raja, ready? Toyota Camry Hybrid Accent 2020. Having a problem with the middle back seat belt sensor, keeps beeping. Yeah, annoying only when any item is putting in the middle seat, even when you don't put your hand. So, as a matter of fact, there's no sensors in the back seat. It all works off the buckles. So you want to make sure you're not buckling the seats and then unbuckling them halfway. We've had some issues with this, and Toyota was like, well, this is user error. But I've seen some cases where it's not user error. There's something going on. But all I can tell you is there is no seat sensor in the back seats. If you are referring to middle back seat, yes, I was trying to make sure it's not the passenger one. The back seats have no sensors. Every time you open the door, the computer scans for buckles. When he sees a buckle down, it knows there's a person there. But if you're driving and you unbuckle that seat and move to the next seat and buckle it, the middle seat will start beeping. Could they do something about that? Yes. But unfortunately, that's the limitation of that. If you want to permanently be done with that annoying thing, just have the dealership disable the sound, that the warning sound. It's not something where they're going to cut wires or whatever. It's just through the scan tool. It'll take them 5 minutes. They should not charge you anything, and life is good. So, Peter Lim, I have a 2018 Toyota Camry. Do I need to change my transmission filter? No. That if you change the transmission fluid on time, you do not have to worry about the filter. And trust me, you do not want to change the filter on your Camry, because that has an 8-speed and the transpan is in the front. It is a small nightmare to get to the filter. This is not a simple take whatever 15, 20 bolts and the pan is down and change the filter in 5 minutes. No, this is a pain because the subframe is in the way, and it's not a simple job to change the filter on the 8-speed. So please don't worry about it. Change the fluid every 60,000, 6 years, and you should have no issues. So Sergi, is there any way to remove 3rd generation Prius from park position with 12-volt battery discharge? Unfortunately, no. If there is a way, we'd love to know it, because every single third generation Prius that shows up to the dealership, everybody just, that's towed in, dead battery, dead everything, burned up, whatever the case may be. Everybody runs away because it is a pain. You have to lift the front wheels off the ground, push it in, move it, push it in, and it's a giant hassle to move them up. We do have some tire jacks, tire dollies, I think you call them. Put them on the tire. It's a pain. There's no way to get them out. Trust me, if there was a way, I would know about it, and we would do it at the dealership, because they're really a pain. So, so Paul, hello from Jersey. Can I go up a tire size on my 2018 Camry SE? Yes, you can. If I don't know if you just want to go the tire or the wheel size. If you're going to go wheel size, look at the XSE. It has a 19-inch wheel. You can go to that size without issues. Tire-wise, don't go too much. And if you go wider tire, lower the profile, the height as well. So if you have a 215, 55, 17, let's just use that number as a reference. When you go 225, you want to drop to 55. Because remember, the first number is the width of the tire. The second number is the height of the tire, but is actually a percentage of the width of the tire and then the wheel size. So you're going to want to, when you widen the tire, if you stay the same height, that's a percentage, so it's going to go much taller. So when you go wider tire, you want to lower the percentage of the height so you'd remain within the same height. So that's the only thing I would do. I wouldn't adventure too much with tire size because this starts affecting other stuff. But if you're staying OEM, go 19-inch, use the XSE tire size. So Soto Maria Hall, how do I know when I'm using gas from the hybrid system? So every time the engine is running and you hear it, you're using your gasoline engine, you're using gas. Every time you don't hear it, it's quiet, you're in EV mode, and you're only using electric power at that point. So Joey C, 2008 Toyota Camry 4-cylinder burns, little over half quart every 2,000 miles. You recommend 5K oil changes still, 80% highway. Honestly, you do still want to, that car is required 5,000 mile oil changes, but the oil consumption in that car, in that engine to a ZFE, is a problem for manufacturing. So there's not much you will be able to do to that to get it to improve, other than tear it apart, change pistons and rings, and call it a day. But yeah, I would still do the 5,000 mile oil changes regardless. Please let me know about P1246 2012 Toyota Prius V, already replaced master cylinder. I have to look at the code and research, so I'll need a little bit more info, like miles, a little bit of history. How did the code come up and everything? And you're gonna give me some time to research. Leave a comment after we're done with the live stream, and we'll do that. So James, how you doing, sir? I hope you're doing well. What do you think of aftermarket transmission coolers for towing? I'm assuming this is for a 19 and up Tundra. And generally, I'll give you a general answer. I think they're helpful, but if the manufacturer decided we don't need one, I think they know what they are doing, especially Toyota. Some other manufacturers do things that make you wonder, but Toyota is not typically like that. They will not just remove a part and figure, nobody will notice. No, they probably figured you don't really need it. But if you're worried, I don't have a problem with aftermarket transmission coolers. However, if we're talking about a Tundra, you have to have a thermostat. These transmissions really don't do well when they're very cold. Now, if you live in Arizona and it's always 100 degrees, I don't know how winters in Arizona are, but I hear it's very hot over there in the summer. So if you live in Arizona and things are very hot, you're probably not going to have an issue with that. But if you live in Chicago, New York, up in the great white north, if you would, you do want to have some kind of thermostat. Usually these kits will use actually OEM parts for the most part. Maybe the cooler itself is not, but the way it takes the fluid out of the train is going to be OEM parts from the previous years. Use a thermostat, because it's very important that you do that on these Tundras. Otherwise, you could run the trans way too cold. Now we have bigger issues than overheating the one time we tow with it. So, Saeed Al-Saad, Land Cruiser 2016, AC airflow problems, front vents always go to foot and shield vents. Any clue? So, this will need some diagnosis. This is not something I go, oh yeah, it's this and that, but there's nothing common. You want to look at the servos. You want to make sure that the first step in diagnosing a problem like this is to determine, do we have a mechanical problem or do we have an electrical problem? Electrical problem, we're not looking at big gremlins and giant disasters. You want to identify, is it the servo? The servo is a little motor that moves the doors to change the direction of flow. Is it the motor that is bad, or is it the door behind the motor? So the motor is just going to move a door that changes the direction. If the motor is working perfectly, that's servo, but the door behind it is broken and it's just flopping around, that's a problem. So the first thing is locate the offending motor, pull it out, activate it, or move it by hand, the arm that the motor moves. If everything switches right, you likely have a problem with the servo. If you switch it by hand and nothing's happening, you need to look into the AC box, tear it apart, see what's broken, what's going on at that point. So another question here, can you give us an idea of the engine oil pump in the Camry hybrid? I don't understand your question, I'm sorry, but I need year, engine, engine, if you just tell me the year, they're all the same. But also, what are you looking for in the Toyota hybrid? You might want to leave a comment on this video or any video, and I'll get back to you. So Patrick C, how reliable are turbocharged engines from Lexus and Toyota? Well, let me see here. 1987 to 1992, Turbo Supra CT26 Turbo, terrible. The following Supra, the Mark IV Supra, and everybody loves it. Sequential twins, not great. And then we fast forward to probably when the NX 200T came out. So far, so good. I've talked about this briefly. But here's the thing about turbo engines. They've came a long way. Turbo development have come a long way since the days of the past. They used to be mainly for performance. Now they're mainly for efficiency. So different use also makes a difference. So far, so good. There is no modern Toyota currently sold in the US that has a turbo. Just letting you know that. Only Lexus and probably only the NX. The first engine that potentially will have turbos is the new 2022 Toyota Tundra with the V35A, which is a twin turbo V6, if that's the engine they went with. So they're generally reliable in the NX 200T. We haven't seen issues yet, but with turbos, it's only a matter of time. So let's move on to the next question. So Lino Becerra, cheers from Chile. What do you think about the new Corolla Cross? So I don't have a lot of information on the Toyota Cross. Folks, I am not a journalist. I'm a mechanic. If the car is not in front of me, I don't like to talk about it. So the Corolla Cross, we're still waiting for actual technical details, not the press stuff. Oh, it makes this much. Goes 0 to 60, goes quarter mile. Who cares about 0 to 60 with a car like the Corolla Cross? What kind of engine does it have? What kind of transmission does it have? What are the changes from, okay, it has a 1.8, 2.0. Will anything change from the other models? What kind of TNGA does it have? What kind of suspension? Somebody mentioned that it will have a beam rear suspension, which is kind of a big question mark. These are the information that I look at. Not really 0 to 60 times and how many cup holders it has. I think that is oversaturated with journalists. So I don't like to really dive into new models until there's actual fact information on them. And I have seen it in person, worked on it, opened the hood, lifted it up, looked underneath it before I share with you. But I am waiting for the Corolla Cross to arrive. Once it does, I'll do my technical tour on it, see it myself, look around it, see what's what, and then I'll share with you all my findings. Okay? So, Raj Sebastian, after replacing head gasket on Camry 2012 Camry Hybrid, engine light for P0012, cam position timing over retard, and engine jerks while idling after a few minutes. Timing, VVTi, those are the first two things when you have a P0012. Is your timing chain on time? These can be a little tricky to time, but that's the first thing I would look at. And the second thing is your oil control valve, all your general oil cleanliness. Was there debris? Because this is the thing with these engines, they're very picky with debris. First thing I would do after you have verified that your timing is 100% correct, pull the oil pan, pull the oil pickup. I want to see that oil pickup. Is it full of little shavings from cleaning all the sealer on the engine? If it's a yes, we have big problems. Whoever did this job needs to go back in, clean everything very, very well, especially the VTI component. All it takes is one return line to be one oil return line from this VVTi hose, and we're talking tiny, teeny lines to be blocked. And now when you lift off acceleration and the engine wants to go back to idle, full retard timing, it can't. It's stuck on advance. And that's exactly what the code is telling you. So it could be a timing issue, could be a clogged passage, could be a lot of things. You're going to want to go back and start with the obvious. Timing set wrong is common, and it does happen, especially if you're not very familiar with the engine, the 2ARFE, FXE in this case. But do go back and check the timing first, check for cleanliness of the job, and check the oil control valves. Folks, we're going to have to wrap up this live stream a little earlier than usual. I do have a few family things going on, so let's take 5 last questions, and then we'll call it a day. So, Omar Alvarado. Hey, CCN, I have a 2008 Lexus RX 350. Where is the steering axle boot is ripped on the passenger side? Can I just grease inside it, or should I hunker down and have it replaced? So here's the situation with that. There should not be grease just oozing out of the boot. Usually what happens with these is it's the steering rack that is leaking, and the seal leaks, fills up the boot ruptures, and now it's leaking everywhere. So you really need to fix this rack. Either have it rebuilt. There's actually a TSB on this one, if I remember correctly. You could replace just the seal and put the new boot, and life's good. If this fails, then I guess you have no choice but to replace the whole rack, because that means there's something, the seal is not sealing right, the shaft has damage, whatever the case may be. It's going to need either a complete rebuild, and at that point, you might be looking at cheaper just to buy a reman one and call it a day. But you could put a boot for now. Just slap a boot on it so it's not exposed if the boot's completely ripped and open. But look at what's causing it to leak. Maybe put the boot, see how long it takes for it to fill with fluid, pull it, see if there's fluid dripping from it when you make full lock turns, because that's how they usually leak. Jeremy W. AMD wants a 4Runner. Come on. I thought about it, brother. By the way, huge shout out to Jeremy. He brought me his 4Runner here. He's an awesome viewer and a good friend. Brought me his 4Runner, and that's how today's video was possible. So thank you very much, Jeremy. And AMD wants a 4Runner, but sensible AMD says it's too much gas to be putting 65, 70 miles a day just to go to work and back. And I'd rather save the 4Runners for the community who's going to actually off-road. AMD, the most off-roading I will be doing is going over the curb on the mall. So that's an excess. I'd rather leave one more 4Runner available for the community than just to buy it and put extreme miles on it, just going back and forth to work. So the second question, 2014 Corolla L manual transmission and 97,000 miles, intermediate long crank, no start, intermittent long crank, no start. I take the key out, try it again, and it starts every time. Also, Anything else you recommend for the 100,000 miles? So if you take your key out, put it back, and it works, look at the key. When it doesn't start, when it long crank and no start, look at the security light. Is it flashing? If it is, you might have a problem with the key or the pickup that picks up when you start the car. Those are the first things that I look at. If you just take the key, flip it, and try it again, it starts every time, you got a problem with the key. Either a bad key or something in your keychain that is blocking the signal of somehow, like causing interference, or the coil. I've seen people put aftermarket lights around the coil. If you have that, that might be the issue, and that needs to go first. But anything else coming up for the 100,000 miles? Probably coolant, if you haven't done it already. Engine coolant, just a general checkup for the car, and you should be all good. Let's take third. Before we do, let's answer this one real quick. So 2007 Camry Hybrid as well. Anything you tell us about Toyota System Guard software and or fail-safe mode? How to correct, replace throttle body, but now have calculated load at 73% at idle and only 0.7 amp to throttle body. Any reset procedures? There is no reset procedures. That calculated load figure is tricky. Don't look at that. Look at the symptoms that you have. What is the car doing? What kind of codes you have? What are your symptoms? Don't start reading into the data list, because then we're chasing a ghost. 73% calculated load at idle could mean a lot of things and could mean nothing. And the throttle body having 0.7 amps, do you have an issue? I know we're gonna go through the chat and this. Leave me detailed information, because sometimes with diagnosis, I need the whole picture. How did we arrive at 73% idle, or we're just looking through a scan tool looking at it? What are your symptoms? What are your problems? Typically, in fail-safe operation with hybrids, like for example, when the hybrid battery, let's say your hybrid battery failed. By the way, everybody else might be interested in this. What happens when your hybrid battery fails? Do you know that hybrid batteries actually don't fail? They no longer can sustain hybrid operations. They don't die and become 0 volts. That's a disaster. That becomes a brick, just like a Tesla. Can't start the car, can't do nothing. So they really, when they set that code, POA80 or something, I'm trying to remember the code, they're telling you that the current voltages of the cells no longer can sustain hybrid driving or EV driving or hybrid drivetrain operation. Basically, when the variance between them is too much, it can no longer charge them and control the battery. It just shuts it off. But here's what it does. It still uses the battery for reverse and for starting the engine. As soon as you power the car on, it'll power up, it'll turn on the engine, and that's it. It won't do anything else until you put it in reverse or you shut it off. It'll still charge a 12-volt battery using the hybrid battery. It'll still turn on the compressor for the AC, for example, but it won't drive the car. So you'll notice the fail-safe mode is it's only using the engine power. So you're very limited on power. The engine's always revving up very high and the car is not going anywhere. These are the signs. And I see so many people that tell me my hybrid has a check engine light, check hybrid light, wherever the case may be, and the gasoline engine is screaming all the time. It never shuts off. First thing I usually tell you is you either have a severely overheating battery or you have a bad battery code. Replace hybrid pack. It's as simple as that. So that's what happens with these. So I do need a lot more information, Alex, on what's going on. Where are you working on that you're looking at these numbers? Because case in point, if you have a hybrid battery code and the calculated load is 73% at idle, yeah, I believe that, because the engine has no help. It's not designed to drive this whole car on its own. Remember, this is an Atkinson cycle engine. So 2018 4Runner SR5, 78,000 miles, have developed a steering wheel thunk vibration going at slow speed over small bumps. Any ideas where to start looking? First thing is this modified? If it is, look at the modifications first. We've seen a lot of modifications lately that make all kinds of weird drivability issues over bumps. Second thing is tire pressure. Is it 50 psi? Is it normal? Check the tire pressures first. That's the first thing I would look at. Start with the simple stuff. Something that is relatively common and we're starting to see more and more of is front sway bar bushings. As simple as that. Now, this is an 18 with 78,000 miles. I doubt it, but still check them. Wouldn't hurt. And the other thing is anything with the suspension, struts leaking, wheel bearing that's loose, something with the brakes that is making noise. This is the kind of stuff I would head towards first before you go into big stuff and go from there. So Johnny444, can you recommend a product to flush the engine trying to fix the stuck oil ring issue for oil consumption? The products that I use at work, they're for professional use. Unfortunately, I've talked to the company and I told them, hey, you should market your stuff for retail sales because you actually make really good products. But they're not interested. They just want to sell to professionals and that's it. We'll see what happens with that in the future. But there's a lot of other products, but they're always going to be watered down versions of what the professionals will use, because the professional stuff, when you use it, if you don't use it as directed, you can actually cause damage. That's the problem with those. So Liqui Moly makes really good products. I've heard good things about them. I haven't tried it myself, but that's one that I would try. And they seem to have really good reputation. A lot of people say good things about that product. So last two questions. Ricardo Gonzalez. This is going to be a small rant. So hold your breath. Is it okay to ride the full 10,000 mile Mobil 1 oil offers before replacing it again? Toyota Prius X LE. Please don't. Please don't. Let's talk about one thing, and here we go. There is a rant coming. Be ready. Be ready. Hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. Don't trust the oil company. Trust the manufacturer only when you've read all their instructions. Because you know what? I've been telling you to do oil change every 5,000 miles, 6 months. People have said many things about me for saying that. Some people agreed, some people disagreed, some people told me I flat out don't know what I'm talking about. And that's okay. Everybody has their opinion. I respect that. But you gotta read your maintenance guide. If the manufacturer is telling you 5,000 miles, if you do this, then you gotta go 5,000 miles. Never go by the recommendation of the oil company, because you know what? Oil companies, they're good. Mobil 1 is good. I like Mobil 1. I use Mobil 1 here and there. I think they're a good company. Actually, Mobil is a supplier for the oil for Toyota. However, when they go on a limb and say, our oil is good for 15,000 miles. If you ever have a problem, we'll warranty it. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Good luck with that. Let's just put it this way. I still want to meet someone who has actually found a way to get his engine warranted when it blew up because he didn't change his oil on time, according to the manufacturer of the engine, from an oil company. If you know someone, I'd love to hear that story, because I just don't see it. And that goes the same with the transmissions, with aftermarket fluids. You have a 50-50 chance. Yeah, there is better fluids and this and that, but do you want to be the experimental one? I don't, so I'll just go with OEM. OEM is great. It's designed to work with the car. You know 100% is going to work as good as up to the point you're replacing it. So I don't know what the oil company promises of, oh, this will work 15,000 miles, and some of them 25,000 miles. 25,000 miles. 10,000 miles are causing enough damage. I can only imagine 25,000 miles. And with that, I'm going to share with you a quick story. We recently had a beautiful 2011 Camry V6. Comes in, knocking noise and extreme smoke. And this thing has 26,000 miles on the car, maybe? 2011 Camry V6, beautiful, 11, with 27,000 miles. Thing is just rattling its life out and bellowing smoke out of the exhaust, out of the dual exhaust too. I was like, what's going on here? pull it in. I pull the dipstick, and it's just like ditch dark. I'm like, oh my God. Pull the oil cap, it's just sludge down all the way to the top. The owner have not had an oil change in just over 21,000 miles. They just forgot. They don't drive this car. I look at the oil sticker on the window. The oil change was due in 2014. Go figure. So they went 21,000 miles. The engine is done. It's done. That's it. There's no fixing that. There's no taking it apart and cleaning every little thing unless you want to pay 3 times more what it would cost to put a used engine. So please don't fall for this. Read your owner's manual, and not just read the first line, read the whole thing, because it does tell you 5,000 mile oil changes if you have these specific conditions. And you really got to look into these conditions because they apply to most people. And people are out there doing these 10,000 mile oil changes, and they will tell you, I had no problem. I sold it at 150,000 miles. But they will not tell you the whole story, because I see the whole story. When the car comes in, no oil, an oil change, engine rattling its life out. Because it's a Toyota, they last forever, the engines. You can even run them very low in oil and they'll be fine. Then you buy the car secondhand and you're stuck with the problem for the life of the car. Be careful, folks. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it. All right, folks. So we'll take the last question. Sorry about that little rant. It just bothers me when people make this small decision that will impact the life of their car. I love you guys. I want your car to cost you nothing. And the best way for the car to cost you nothing in major repairs is for you to take care of it. All I do at work is major repair. I don't do small stuff. I don't do oil changes. That doesn't really affect anything that I do. All I do is major work at work. That's why I am a Toyota Master Diagnostic Technician. We don't exactly do brakes and tires and little maintenance. This is the easy work for mechanics. Mechanics love this kind of work because it's easy. They call it juice work, where it's just simple. You get all this done, brain turned off, and life is good. I don't do that. I have engine on top of engine, on top of a transmission, on top of disasters and water leaks, and that's what I deal with at work. And I see those engines when they come in at 120, 130,000 miles, and they burn oil because I look at the service history. The best oil change was 10,000 miles. So please take care of your car. You're really not going to have any issues. Toyotas are still good cars. Take care of them, and they'll take care of you. So let's take the last question, and the last is always first. So let's take Karen Baker, 2006 Toyota Sienna with 195,000 miles. With the unavailability of 2021 Siennas, is it beneficial to replace O2 sensor until new are more available? In the past 3 months, replaced exhaust cat converter. If this is all this van needs, yes, do replace it. But honestly, unless you have an emission test coming up and you know you're getting rid of this van, you're just trying to get the last few months out of it until the new Sienna arrives, don't replace it, because all it does is emission stuff. I don't know if this is AF sensor or O2 sensor, but regardless, if you don't have an emission test and you really need that check engine light to come off, don't worry about it. Just drive. Just make sure the van is safe. Suspension, tires, brakes, brake lines, if you live in the Rust Belt, make sure the car is safe. It's not perfect. It's probably leaking oil here, makes a noise there, but as long as it's safe for you and your family, I wouldn't worry about all the other stuff, especially knowing that you are getting rid of the car. If you decide to keep it for another year or two, maybe replace that O2 sensor. But at this age, at this miles, focus on safety. The older your Toyota is, the more problem it's going to have. That's just the way it is with cars. Toyota still hold up much better than other manufacturers, but there's a point where things start happening and your focus starts shifting from absolute perfection into safety, because I see so many people that put so much money into their cars and they ignore important safety stuff. Safety first. Cars need to be safe before they work perfectly, and they have enough power, and the AC works right. They need to be safe. So focus on your safety first, and then everything else after that. All right, folks. So I hope, sorry we ranted a little bit today, but I had to say this. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you learned something new from this live stream. Next week, we will not have a live stream, like I said at the beginning. The following week, we will have a live stream back at Saturday at 7 p.m. So until the next live stream, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you. You guys have a wonderful day.